In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to change your own oil the DIY way on this 1982 280 SE. The first step would be to use this engine flush to help remove sludge and any other stuff that can't really come out during the oil change, and it will just help you flush out the oil better. This is my first time using it and I'll give my honest opinion about it, but this will be step one. So all you need to do before you start your car, open the oil cap, open the bottle, and just pour it in. Then what you need to do is you need to run your car for about 20 minutes, but on the bottle it says to drive it for 100 kilometers. Now that's not really the best of ideas, so it's preferable to just let it run for 20 minutes, let it get hot, and drain the oil straight after. So that's all we're gonna do now. Okay, so I ran the vehicle for about 20 minutes and I put it up on ramps and I put it on a jack on the back. But make sure when you're putting it on jack stands or trestles that it's on a structural point. So right now the trestles are on the jack points on the car, both sides, and the jack is just a support, so it's not really on the jack, it's mostly on the trestle. So do that, and now we're going to start with the oil change, draining it out. Another thing I wanted to mention is when you are doing an oil change, make sure your car is level so that you get all the oil out, and you don't have to have wheel ramps. It's just for me to make it easier on myself. You can just use a normal jack and jack it up with trestles like I did in the back, and it's really that simple. And you don't even need a crawler, you can just put a piece of cardboard at the bottom and lay on your back to change the oil. It's not really that hard. For the oil change, you'll need a drain pan or something to drain the oil into. So I have this drain pan that's specifically for oil, but you don't need the fancy things. You can just use this, for example, normal oil what would you call it, oil can or whatever, oil bottle. And what you want to do is you want to cut it all here to make an opening, so then the oil goes through here and then it's sealed off here. Then when you want to take it out and put it somewhere into another bottle, you can just open this cap, drain it, and then continue from there. So it's really about creativity and how you plan things to make it easier for yourself. Before you go down and drain the oil, and to make it drain faster, open the oil cap so that create air circulation, and it helps drain the oil faster and get all of it out. We're now under the car and it's gonna be slightly difficult to record here, but I'll try my best. And you just need to look for your drain bolt and your oil filter. Sometimes the oil filter is on the top, sometimes it's on the bottom, sometimes it's on the side, but it's easily identifiable. Like in this case, it's just this big round circular thing here, and then the drain bolt is over here, which is a size 13. So now what you want to do is you want to get a 13 millimeter, can be a spanner or a socket like I have here, and you just want to crack it loose. So let me do that. I got the drain bolt loose now, and what you want to try and do with the oil pan is you want to angle it in the direction that the oil is going to come out to prevent spills. So the idea here is, oh yeah, and I forgot to mention, after you add the engine cleaner, make sure to drain the oil as soon as you switch it off. So when it's hot, but not hot to the point where you're gonna burn yourself down here, just hot enough for you to get all the oil out. So the key here is to, when you're loosening the threads, you want to push up against the bolt. To prevent any mess or spillage. And then when you're at the blast drum, you'll see that I missed it a little bit. When you're there, you want to let it flow. And I did not get it right. I spilled a little, but it's okay. So in this oil, in this engine, for the straight sixes of the 80s Mercedes-Benz, it takes about 7 liters of oil. And yeah, so it is quite a bit, so it's going to be draining here for a while. So in the meantime, what you want to do is you want to clean up any oil that you spilled from your hands. And then there is a crush washer, a copper washer on here. You want to always replace that every time you do an oil change. And then you can just clean off the bolt, and then while it's draining you can also move on to the filter. Alright, so I got a new crush washer on the bolt. I cleaned up myself a little bit, but yeah, there's a mess on the floor. That is why it is really important to line up your oil drain pan with the drain plug to avoid the mess. So after you put the new copper washers on, you want to thread it back on, and before you tighten it, just give it a little wipe. You can use a carb cleaner or brake cleaner just to clean it off, but I don't have that right now, so I'm just gonna wipe it off with a tissue. That'll be just fine. Then what you want to do is you want to take your socket and then, or your spanner, and then you want to tighten it, not tight to the point where it's stiff, just so that it's snug, and that's perfectly fine. You don't need to tighten it any more than that. It will seal. Crush washers are squashed together to the mating surface, and it's perfectly fine. Now we're gonna move on to the oil filter. So the bolt on the oil filter, you don't normally get bolts on oil filters. You normally have to use a certain tool that I'll show you in a few moments, but by the 17, size 17. So now what you want to do is you want to take your oil drain pan and you want to move it to where the oil filter is, and then you want to loosen it the rest of the way off. You want to loosen it. Okay. Make sure it's lined up this time. Don't be like me. And yes, it is going to make a bigger mess because of this steering shock here, and stabilizer or tie rod link. Alright, it's gonna come out, so let me just support it. And it is going to make a big mess. Hopefully not on me. Okay, I'm gonna have to put the camera down. Okay, so I got the oil filter out after a lot of struggling with the steering arms, steering shocks, and whatever else was blocking it, and a huge mess later. I got it out, so now I'm gonna show you how to change your oil filter. Okay, Okay, so I got the oil filter out, I got it cleaned up, all the oil drained out of it, and I must say it's a good idea to wear gloves. But honestly, it's a love-hate relationship because it protects your hands from getting dirty, but you don't really have any sense of grip with gloves. Like I would struggle to do this in a tight place with gloves. But anyway, with the oil filter you get different kinds of oil filters, like I said, and you have different tools to remove them, but I didn't need that in this case. And yes, I know the oil is dirty, and there is a perfectly good explanation for that. This car had a difficult life. It was sitting for about 10 years, and then I got it as one of my project cars, and it needed a whole lot of things done to the engine. I'm talking fuel adjustment, ignition, timing, everything, and it took me a long time to really get the fuel pressures right. So a lot of the time it was running rich, very rich, to the point where it was thinning the oil. So that's why I'm doing an oil change now, to get rid of this oil. And yes, this car does still have good compression. I checked it, engine's still healthy. It's just the oil just needed to be changed, and you can see it. And I really don't know if the engine cleaner really helped, but it's just a good thing to do. You don't have to do it, but it's just a good thing to do. So now I'm gonna get this inside cleaned out. You can use carb cleaner, brake cleaner again, but I don't have that, so I'm just gonna use a tissue, a couple of tissues, wipe it out, clean it, clean the outside, and then we'll start by replacing the filter. Okay, so I got it all cleaned up. Inside is also clean. And now what you basically want to do is, after you take the filter out of the housing, you want to take off the gasket or the O-ring. You can use a flat screwdriver, it doesn't matter, you're going to be replacing it anyway. Just try not to dig into the surface. Okay, I got the seal out. So, and now what you basically want to do is you want to take your new filter and you want to open it up and compare the two with your old filter. So now they are the same. I know they are the same, already checked. And then in the box you'll also get an O-ring, which is the exact same like this one. So basically what you want to do, it's simple. You want to put it in, make sure it's flush, press it down, and then what you want to do is you want to take some of your new oil and you just want to take some of your new oil, open it up, and you just want to take a little bit on your finger and you just want to go around lubricating the O-ring. Just like that. So now I'm going to do the rest and I will see you back under the car. I forgot to mention another thing with the oil filter. Always remember which way it came out. So it came out like this way, big circle on the top, small circle on the bottom, and that's how we're going to put it back. Always make sure to do this because it can be a catastrophic failure if you don't do it properly, because your engine will starve. So just keep that in mind. I got the oil filter back in, and now I know you guys are gonna say pre-fill your oil filter before you put it into the engine, but now the problem with that is the oil is gonna come out at the bottom here and it's gonna make a big mess, and it's just gonna make it more difficult for myself. And it is a good idea to always pre-fill your filters, and I would recommend doing that. Actually, I would say you have to do that, but in this case it's just gonna make a big mess, and most of it is gonna leak out by the time I tighten this bolt. So I'm not gonna pre-fill the filter, and I will show you how to make sure your engine gets oil circulating through before you start it. I got the oil filter in. I haven't torqued it yet, so I'm gonna show you guys how to torque it. So normally on a normal oil filter you have to torque it by hand, but because this is a nut, you want to take a socket and tighten it. And another thing is, when you're threading any bolt, it doesn't have to be only for an oil change, but any bolt on a vehicle, you always want to start it by hand so you don't cross thread it, and then you can go crazy with your impact or your socket or your spanner or whatever. But always tighten it by hand, just to make sure that you don't cross thread it. It's just a habit. Okay, I can't get this thing on. Yeah, as I was saying, it's just a habit that I've just grown into, and it is actually a really helpful habit, because the last thing you want is a cross-threaded bolt on an easy job. So you don't want it to be tight, just like the oil filter. Just make it snug, just snug. It doesn't have to be tight, and that's all you need to do for the oil filter. Then just double check your drain bolt is tight, oil filter is also tight, and now we're gonna go back up and fill it with oil. Okay, we're back up on top. The oil filter and the drain bolt is torqued down. Again, not stiff, just tight enough for it to hold. So basically what you want to do with your old oil filter is you want to take the box that the new one came in. You want to take the O-ring, put it in, take the oil filter, put it in, and just throw it in the bin. You don't need it anymore. It's not reusable, and yeah, it even says carton recyclable, so just throw it away. So now we're going to get to filling the oil. Okay, so before we fill the oil, you're going to need a funnel, because not everyone is perfect with the aim at filling anything, so you don't want to make a mess. So this is where a funnel comes in, but not everyone has a funnel, which is why you can be creative and make your own. This is just a normal iced tea bottle that I cut in half, and it has become a funnel. And again, this is what I used to use before I had all the fancy things. You don't need the fancy things. Just be creative about it. Just like the drain pan and the trestles, just be creative. You don't need the fancy things. You can do it just fine without it. Because I haven't used this funnel in a while, you want to clean it. You want to make sure you clean it, all the dust and whatever else is inside, so you don't get any of that stuff inside your engine. Okay, now we're back on the top of the engine. So now first thing you want to do, open the oil cap, but you should have already done that to let the oil drain out. So then next you want to take out your drain stick, your drain, not your drain stick, your, what do you call it again? Your oil dipstick, there you go. And then you just want to put it on tissue, wipe it down, and leave it somewhere. So now you should know how much your engine takes, how much oil your engine takes after buying it. You should have done your research. You can find that on the forums, on Google, anywhere really, even previous owners. Here, same thing with the type of oil you use. Google, previous owners, forums, and that's just really how you find out which is the best oil to use. So now for this car, I've heard lots of good things about this oil. Makes the engine last on, makes these type of engines last on this oil, and it just seems to work. Okay, so the step for filling oil is straightforward, but I have a trick that I've been using, and it is don't pour it straight like this. You always want to pour it sideways like that, and the reason for that is to prevent bubbles, because it can cause a mess, and you know, we don't want that. We don't want any oil on our tappet cover want to keep it as clean as possible. And it's just the little things that make it easier, make an oil change easier. Okay, so now I'm putting about 5 liters in first. This engine takes 7 like I said, so I'm just gonna pour this whole bottle in. And before you pour the whole bottle in, always go underneath and check if anything is leaking. I know there's oil on the floor, I spilt, that's on me, don't do that. But check if there's any leaks before you add the rest. Okay, so done with the first 5 liter bottle. I'm gonna get the next one for the extra 2 liters that I need to put, and then we'll do the next step. Okay, the next part is gonna be slightly more different because we're almost at the full level mark. So what you want to do is you want to add little by little, and then you want to keep on checking the dipstick. So I'm going to do that and I'll check in with. So the process is the same with checking oil. You want to wipe it down with a tissue, and then you want to put it in to the dipstick tube, and then instantly taking it out. Then you want to check the level, and as you can see we are just a little bit over, but I've put about maybe 6 liters, 5.5 liters. So that is where this next part is gonna come in. So now we've filled the oil to the full mark, but it's not full just yet. And also when you're taking out the funnel, just have a tissue on hands to prevent drops. So now we want to crank the car, and I know not many people do this, they just start it right away, but I didn't pre-fill the oil filter, and I do this even when I do pre-fill the oil filter. What I do is I remove the fuel pump fuse or fuel pump relay so that there's no power going to the fuel pump, and I just crank the engine, let it build up oil pressure, then I start it. But now on this car it's a bit different because I have had problems with the fuel relay, and there's just something going on there with the fuel relay. When I remove it, it sometimes doesn't connect properly. It's like a loose connection or something. So I'm not going to remove the fuel relay. Instead, I'm going to go to the back of the car and disconnect one of the wires from going to the fuel pump. So let's do that. Okay, so we're in the back of the car now, at the back of the car where the fuel pump is located, and this car is special as a fuel pump outside of the tank instead of inside the tank. Makes it all the much easier for me. So basically it's just a 8mm nut that's holding it on, holding one of the wires on, and because it's loose, it's very loose, you need to hold it with one hand and loosen with the other. So I'm going to do that now just to prevent it from breaking any of the pipes off. Okay, the wire is off. Make sure you keep the bolts or the nuts, whatever is holding it, keep it safe, and remember the order at which it goes in: washer, then nut. And now we're just gonna go check if the fuel pump comes on. Also, another thing, don't forget to close the oil filter, not the oil filter, the oil cap, just to prevent splashing. And we're going to start cranking it. Now on normal cars, what you would normally do is you would turn the key to the run position and the fuel pump would come on. But these older Mercedes with the fuel injection system works differently. The fuel pump will never come on when you put it in the run position, the key on the on position. It's just how they work. It's just how they are fueled, how they are programmed, and how they work. It's just to prevent overfueling. It's a very technical system, but it's a very easy system once you get to know it. But not many people know how it works, and that's the sad thing about these cars. So what you want to do, you want to put it in neutral and make sure your handbrakes are on, so just so you don't roll. Then it's not gonna crank. This is just to check if the fuel pump comes on, and as you can see, you hear nothing. The fuel pump is dead. So now we're going to crank it and just build up oil pressure. Okay, I didn't mean for it to start. It was just residual fuel, but it should just crank now. And you want to build up that oil pressure, and you want to see that needle move. Right now it's not moving, so that's a bit of a problem. That is genuinely a problem. Let me just go check if there's any leaks and I will try again. Okay, I got the oil pressure up now. Everything looks good. And now we're gonna go check the oil and see how it's doing. Yeah, don't forget, it's the general process again. Take it out, wipe it down, make sure it's clear, and then we're gonna put it back in. We're gonna put it back in and we're gonna check. See, I don't know if you guys can see, but the oil level did go down quite a bit. That's almost to the min mark, if my camera can focus. And that is why this step is so important, because it can save your engine, and also it can prevent unwanted wear. So I'm gonna top the car off and I'm gonna connect the fuel pump wire and we're gonna see it run. Okay, I topped off the oil. It's now perfectly on the max line, and now we're gonna run the engine. And the reason why you need to top it off again is because the oil doesn't circulate around the engine, it just sits in the crankcase. So after you crank it, it circulates through the filter, through the oil filter housing, through the engine, into the head. It goes everywhere. So then the level goes down, so you need to add. That is why I first crank the engine and then I check the oil. So now it is safe to run, and I'm going to run it and check for leaks. Okay, I got the fuel pump wired back in, took off everything from the engine bay. Make sure you do that so that it doesn't hit the fan. None of your tools hit the fan. Close the oil cap, close the dipstick, and now we are ready for it to run. So now this car is well built by me. Engine is well done. Fuel is everything with the fuel distributor system is up to scratch, and everything works. So it should just start on the turn. Oil pressure is good, nice and high. Really good actually. Yeah, everything looks good. So now we're gonna check for leaks while it's running. Everything looks good with the engine and no leaks. Sounds good. Oil pressure is good. Checked it again, still full. And yeah, so now we're gonna have to get it off the ramps, off the trestles. I'm not gonna show that just so that YouTube doesn't give me any problems. And then I'm just gonna take it down the road, and that I am also not going to show because I don't want any problems with YouTube, because I'm still young, I'm 16, don't want any legal issues. So yeah, just gonna take it off the trestles, and maybe I'll give you guys some footage of some revs. Alright, car is down on ramps, and don't forget to put back anything that you took off. Like I took off the air filter, it's over there, I need to put it back on. So yeah, that's just pretty much how you do an oil change on any vehicle. And yeah, so that concludes the video. If you would like to see any more content on not just this car but that car over there, or just any other car, like this video, subscribe, give it a thumbs up. I do more content other than this. I can do more content other than this. This is just something easy, something that anyone can do. Like if you guys wanted to, I can even film myself rebuilding an engine, gearbox, whatever. Just something more interesting. But I need to see that you guys really do enjoy this stuff from me. And that will conclude the video. And yeah, thanks for watching.